Hi book lovers, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I wanted to talk about all the sequels that I read this year, all the romance sequels that either came out this year in 2023 or the ones that I read this year that maybe came out last year. I'm gonna talk about whether the book stands up on its own, how it compares to the previous books in the series. I'm basically gonna decide if it's a good sequel or not, and if it's a better sequel. And I do have a fairly even amount between good sequels and not so good sequels. I have a lot of books to talk about, so let's just get started. I really have no particular order that I'm going in, so I'm just going off the list that I have in front of me. Starting off with the Lost and Found series by Catherine Cowles. I had a hard time deciding whether to count the series because all four books, the first four books in the series, came out this year, and the fifth book is coming out in early 2024. So I guess for this video, I'm just gonna pick my favorite sequel in this series, which is Glimmers of You. Honestly, all the books that I read are on a pretty even level. I enjoyed them all. They're all these small town romances with romantic suspense, but I guess what sets Glimmers of You apart from me is how much I loved the heroine here. She was such a wonderful heroine, like very strong, headstrong, but empathetic. She's a total sweetheart, but she can hold her ground. She was just so relatable, I guess, so I loved her character, maybe even more than the hero here. If you're looking to read the Lost and Found series, I mean, I recommend them all, but this one is my favorite so far. It's this brother's best friend, second chance romance, fake dating romance that was so good. And then we have Radiant Sin by Katee Robert. This book is the fourth book in the Dark Olympus series. She had two books come out this year in the series, books 4 and 5, but I only read this fourth one. And did I like it? Not really, but I still liked it more than the previous books. The reason why I liked this one a little bit more was just that the hero was so different from the previous heroes. He was actually a good guy and he was out doing good things. So this one, even though it's not like a great book, I still consider it a good sequel because I liked it more than the previous books, which is a little surprising because this Greek mythology retelling is Cassandra and Apollo's romance, and I'm probably least familiar with their story. Like, we had Hades and Persephone, Eros and Psyche, Helen of Troy, but Apollo and Cassandra I don't really read too many retellings about. So take from this what you will. I don't love the series, but this one so far is the best one for me. And then I also read His Curvy Rejected Mate by Kate C. Wells. This is the fourth book in her 5-pack series, her paranormal romance series. It's about these groups of shifters and they all have the rejected mate trope, so there's a lot of groveling going on. I did enjoy this book, but it's not my favorite of the series. It's not the worst, but it's not the best either. It's still so hard to top that first book in the series. The Tyrant Alpha's Rejected Mate is still top tier, so this one doesn't live up to the first book. I would put this fourth book maybe in third place. I didn't like it as much as book 1 and book 3, but it's better than book 2. If you've read any of the books in the series, then they all do follow a similar formula. Like, the hero rejects the heroine as his mate. The heroine is like, well, that's your loss, and the hero now has to do a lot of groveling to make up for the rejection. So they all have fated mates, they all have a dumb hero, and they all have groveling. It's just like each individual element is a little different in each book. So I did enjoy the groveling here, but the hero was just especially dumb. It's a good installment in the series, but just not the best sequel. And then I have Final Offer by Lauren Asher. This is the third and final book in the Dreamland Billionaire series. Was it a good book? Yes, I had a great time with it. I adored the main characters here. I especially loved the heroine. I love a good, strong heroine who makes the hero work for her love, because this hero messed up big time. It's this childhood friends to lovers, second chance romance. It's angsty and heartbreaking, but also so wonderful. So I really enjoyed this one, but is it better than the previous books in the series? It is definitely heaps better than the first book. The first book I just didn't like at all, but I love the second book. So I still love that second book more. Terms and Conditions is just marriage of convenience heaven. So it was going to be hard living up to that book. And unfortunately, this one not as good as book 2. Do I still recommend this book though? Yes, I highly recommend it, especially if you love second chance romances and small towns. And then this book is Full Moon Over Freedom by Angelina M. Lopez. This is book 2 in the Milagro Street series. It's this small town romance series, and this one has a little bit of some paranormal to it. But basically this whole series is about this big Mexican American family who live in this small town in Kansas, and the heroine here is one of the daughters who ran away to build a different kind of life, but now she is back home. She is divorced with 2 kids, and she runs into an old friend, a guy who crushed on her big time, and the same guy that she lost her virginity to. It was a great sequel. I definitely enjoyed it more than the first book. I mean, I love a good pining hero, okay? And this hero pined so hard. Like, he was devastated when the heroine left town years ago. She was the one for him and he never got over her, so that was fantastic to read. This is definitely one of my favorite sequels that I read this year. And then I also read Caution to the Wind by Giana Darling. This is book 7 in the Fallen Men series. This is a much awaited sequel, and did it live up to the series? Yes, it did. It's actually my new favorite book in the series now, even though I'm not entirely all caught up. But I have read 4 books now, so I can at least say if it's a good sequel or not. Caution to the Wind is book 7 in this Motorcycle Club series, and I loved it. It's one of my favorite reads this year. It's this forbidden romance with an age gap. The heroine falls for her childhood friend's stepdad. It was all angsty and dramatic, and the romance was so powerful, so it was amazing. Like I said, it's my new favorite of the series. Surprisingly, I know, because everyone loves book 2. I love that one, but Caution to the Wind did beat it for me. Then again, it's been a long time since I've read the first 3 books, so maybe I do need to do a little reread. I also read Powerless by Elsie Silver. I recently just read this one. I did a whole vlog on it, and this is book 3 in the Chestnut Spring series. It's this small town cowboy romance series, and it was good, but not as good as book 2. Heartless is still my favorite. I did enjoy Powerless. I am a sucker for Friends to Lovers. This is childhood Friends to Lovers. She is a ballerina, he is a hockey player, and she runs away on her wedding day, and he helps her. It was a really sweet read, lots of good steam, but it still didn't live up to book 2. That book, single dad perfection. So Powerless, a good sequel, but not the best in the series. For some Christmas vibes, I read A Holly Jolly Ever After by Julie Murphy and Sierra Simone. This is book 2 in their Christmas Notch series, their holiday romance series. Book 1 was A Merry Little Me Cute. That book was loads of fun, so I had some high expectations for this sequel, and it lived up to them. I had another great time with the second book, and honestly, it's kind of hard to say if I like book 1 or 2 more. Well, I guess if I liked the sequel as much as book 1, then it did its job, right? So if you enjoyed book 1, if you love the holiday vibes there, the steam there, then you'll also have a great time with the sequel. It's basically like the first book, but the roles have just swapped for the main characters. Like in the first book, the heroine was a porn star. The hero is this wholesome boy band member. The heroine here this time is not a porn star. She is the pure wholesome one who grew up in purity culture, and the hero this time, he is another member of that boy band, but he's the one with a viral sex tape. I read a mafia romance sequel. I read Mafia Target by Milo Finelli. This is book 4 in the Kings of Italy series. I read book 1 and I kind of skimmed over book 2 because I didn't enjoy book 1, but that is because it was the audiobook's fault. I hated the audiobook, but I was kind of too lazy to actually read the ebook. So if you get the option to read book 1 in the Kings of Italy series, do not go to the audiobook, because the hero, his Italian accent was just horrid to listen to. Now, I don't know if the audiobook for this 4th book has a terrible Italian accent as well. I read the ebook, but it is an mafia romance. It's actually about the son of the hero from the first 2 books, and I enjoyed this couple so much more than the first couple. Again, that's mostly because the audiobook was just not good, but still, I like the story here. It's so fun and exciting. We have an assassin hero whose next target is supposed to be the other hero, the son. Instead though, he falls in love with him, and It's so hot, lots of steam here. So yes, this was definitely a much better sequel. And then this book is Hail Mary by Candy Steiner. It's the fourth book in the Red Zone Rival series. I only read book 2 before reading this one, but I did end up liking this book even more than book 2, which was still really good. I love the start of the romance, the start of the relationship, because the main characters, they knew each other back in high school, but they were like total opposites. He was the popular jock, she was the loner who got bullied, but they start gaming together anonymously. She figures out who he is, but he has no idea who she is. And then things happen that cause her to get humiliated at school, so she's never forgiven him since, and now they reunite in college. Well, he's in college, she's working for like a tattoo parlor. He's the star running back, and she ends up becoming new roommates with him, and it's just so much fun. I love these two. I kind of love that even though it's a college romance, the heroine decided not to go to college, like to pursue a different path in life. So it's a great sports romance, a great football romance, and as much as I really liked book 2, Hail Mary beats it out by just a little. I have The Summer Girl next by Elle Kennedy. This is the third book in her Avalon Bay series. This is like this small seaside town. Admittedly, this is not one of her better books. This is not one of her better series. I'm not entirely sure why. It just is so different from all her other new adult romances, but it's not my favorite. But I did read this third book, this third sequel, and I mean, I liked it for the most part. It was okay, but I still think book 2 was a little bit better. That book was really interesting to me. I like the whole dynamic between the main characters there. It was very dramatic, very angsty. But in the third book, it's more like a friends to lovers romance because the hero rejects the heroine. She wants a summer fling. He is usually totally up for that, but he's trying to change, so he sticks her in the friend zone. And I mean, it was cute. I like the whole friends to lovers thing, but it's just nothing all that amazing. So this wasn't the best sequel of this year for me. This one is Make-A-Wish by Helena Hunting. This is the third book, the third and final book in the Spark House series. The whole trilogy is about these 3 Spark sisters who run Spark House, which is their family's event hotel. I enjoyed the first 2 books, book 2 more than book 1, but I love the whole sisterly dynamic here, and I was excited about this third and final sister, and I had so much fun with it. It's this adorable single dad romance. The heroine actually used to nanny for the hero until things kind of crossed the line a little, so he up and left. It was a really sweet read. If you love single dad, you'll definitely fall for this romance, and the daughter, the hero's daughter, is adorable too. I can't decide if I like this one more than book 2 though. They're kind of neck and neck, but it was still a great sequel for 2023, and it did end on such a good note. I love seeing like all the 3 couples at the end together. And then for a very hyped sequel, this is Wildfire by Hannah Grace. This book I know a lot of people were nervous about because it's a sequel to Icebreaker, which blew up huge last year. I personally didn't love that book. I thought it was just okay. So I was curious to see how I would enjoy Wildfire, and I'm glad to say that I liked it much more than Icebreaker. I'm not sure if most people feel the other way around, but maybe that's just because of how big Icebreaker is, but I really liked Wildfire. It's this really fun summer camp romance. The main characters, they hooked up one night. She left before he could get her name and number, and then they find out that they're now new co-camp counselors. I kind of love that the heroine here, she was a bit promiscuous. Like, she loved to have fun, and I love that for her because we don't really see that a lot in romances. We don't see heroines who have fun sexually, at least not as much as heroes do. So she was great, and I loved the hero. He was a sweet, shy boy. They're total opposites, but they worked so well for me. And then Christina Lauren came out with a sequel to The Unhoneymooners. They came out with this Audible original. It's a sequel novella called The Honeymoon Crashers about the twin sister from book 1. The heroine here is pretty much planning the wedding for her sister, and she gets some help from one of the groomsmen. I think he's a groomsman, or at least he's a friend of the groom, and it was really adorable. I love the whole audio experience, and given that I didn't actually like the Unhoneymooners that much, this was a great sequel. The Honeymoon Crashers was an improvement. I liked it a lot more than the Unhoneymooners, but that being said, it's still a novella, so it's a much shorter read. Don't expect too much out of it, but it's still a great wedding romance novella. It's this destination wedding set in Hawaii, and if you did like the Unhoneymooners, you will more than likely still like the Honeymoon Crashers. I just personally liked it more than the first book. I also read the 2 sequels that came out this year in the Kings of Sin series by Anna Huang. King of Wrath, book 1 came out last year, and then this year, 2023, we got book 2, King of Pride, and then book 3, King of Greed. Did I like these books? Yes, they were good reads, solid installments in the series, but were they better than book 1? That I would say no. I still loved King of Pride, don't get me wrong. I am obsessed with the hero here. He is my favorite hero of the 3 guys so far, but in terms of like the story overall, the romance overall, I still prefer King of Wrath. King of Pride was just a little bit too mellow in comparison, but it's still a really sweet read. There's just not as much drama or angst. Book 3 though, I had really high expectations for because it's the groveling romance. I talked about it in one of my recent vlogs and I did want to love it more. I still really liked it, but I had too high expectations for this, I guess. I wanted a little bit more from King of Greed. So were these good sequels? Yes, I still highly recommend them, especially if you loved book 1 or you love Anna Huang in general, but they didn't quite live up to book 1 for me. Next I have some historical romance sequels that I read. This one is An Earl to Remember by Stacey Reed. This is book 2 in the Unforgettable Love series. Book 1 was A Matter of Temptation. There's not too much of a crossover from what I remember, but it's still part of the same series and this is still a sequel, so I'm counting it. And I love this one so much. It's one of my favorite reads this year. It was definitely better than book 1, even though that book was still good, but I just had the best time reading it. It's so entertaining. It's got the amnesia trope. The hero falls overboard his yacht and the heroine pretends to be his wife. It's ridiculous and a bit over the top, but it was such a fantastic sequel. The other historical romance is The Duke Gets Even by Joanna Shupe, who by the way is also Mila Finelli. She writes historical romance under Joanna Shupe and dark romance, mafia romance under Mila Finelli. This is book 4 in the Fifth Avenue Rebel series, which has been a great series, although I haven't read book 1, but that's because everyone doesn't like that one. But the rest of the series is really solid. Between books 2 and 3, I think I liked book 2 more. I'm gonna have to do a reread because I don't remember, but after having read this 4th one, this might be my new favorite. It's kind of a tie between 2 and 4. They're all so good, but I did especially love the meet cute here. Their first meeting is like this midnight rendezvous. They come across each other in the ocean, they're nude, and they end up kissing. They start up a whole secret affair because the hero is supposed to find someone to marry, but it gets super hot. I mean, all of Joanna Shupe's books, whether it's historical romance or dark romance, mafia romance, they are spicy. But I would say this is absolutely a great sequel for 2023. And then one of my new favorite authors came out with 2 sequels this year. Liz Tomforde came out with The Right Move and Caught Up, books 2 and 3 in the Windy City series. I actually started the series this year, but I'm just gonna talk about the sequels and say whether they were good or not, and without a doubt, they were fantastic. I loved both The Right Move and Caught Up so much more than book 1, Mile High. I mean, I liked Mile High. It was a good sports romance, hockey romance, but The Right Move and Caught Up were just miles better. So yes, both of these were fantastic sequels. I personally have a hard time choosing between The Right Move and Caught Up as my new favorite. Probably it's still The Right Move, but that's because I love the romance so much and I love both the main characters. I love their individual characters. I love them together. They were perfection. If you love sports romance, I highly recommend the series. The first one is hockey, the second one is basketball, and then caught up book 3 is baseball. I also read a fairly recent release, a recent sequel. This is Own Me by K.A. Tucker. This is kind of a surprise sequel in the Wolf Hotel series. It ended at 4 books, but this is a new surprise 5th book that K. Tucker announced. I love the series though. It's this age gap romance, super hot. It's got the boss assistant trope, and the 4th book was by far my favorite of the series. That was such a perfect ending. So I was curious to see how K. Tucker would follow up with that after, you know, everything ended well. And I am so sad to say that I actually DNF'd this book. I did not finish it because something comes up in this 5th book that I did not like. Spoilers, if you don't want to hear what happens, you can skip ahead to the next book. But basically, Henry, the hero, he finds out that he has a kid. He finds out that he has a whole teenage daughter in this 5th book. And I'm like, why? Why was this necessary? We did not need this. It could have just been a happy sequel, no drama except for like wedding stuff, but I just really didn't see the point of adding the fact that he has a daughter now, and it's not the heroine's daughter, obviously. So that whole thing ruined the book for me. I had to stop reading after that. I was like, I don't want this. This was not what I wanted to read about when I picked the sequel up. So I'm gonna pretend that this 5th book does not exist. Obviously, if you couldn't tell, this was not a good sequel for me. I did read Twisted by Emily McIntyre. This is the 4th book in the Never After series. Book 5 also came out this year, but I haven't gotten to that sequel. But I did really like Twisted. This is the Aladdin retelling, the modern dark Aladdin retelling. The heroine's name is Yasmin, and the hero is basically Jafar. He is her father's right-hand man, and her father is currently ill, and all this morally gray hero wants is to inherit everything from that man. So we have a marriage of convenience here. I mean, it's more like an arranged marriage. He forces the heroine to marry him so he can get all that power. It was twisted for sure, but it's a great dark romance. I really like this hero. He is morally gray to a T. Is it my favorite of the series though? It's up there, but I think I still like book 3 more. So book 3 is still my number 1, but Twisted is my new 2nd favorite. It's a great sequel, but did not top that book. And then I read one of my favorites. I read the new Nalini Singh. This is Side-Changeling Trinity book 7, Resonant Surge. It's another fantastic paranormal romance sequel from Nalini. I had a great time with it. I mean, we are back with the bear changelings here. I fell in love with them in book 1, so I was super happy to read about them again. It's another bear Sai pairing. But did I love the sequel as much as the previous books, as much as book 1? No, book 1, Silver Silence, is probably still my favorite in the Side-Changeling Trinity series. It's still a great book, but I'm a Nalini Singh fangirl, so no matter what I read from her, I'm gonna enjoy it. I read another paranormal romance sequel that came out this year. This is The Rebel King by Gina L. Maxwell. This is book 2 in the Deviant King series. It's a sequel to The Dark King, which I had so much fun with last year. It gave me all the good mid-2000s paranormal romance vibes, so I was really looking forward to the sequel, but I'm so sad that I didn't love it as much. I had such high hopes for it, but I was not into the romance at all here. So yeah, this was not the best sequel in 2023. I also read the Knock 'Em Out series by Lucy Score. I fell in love with Things We Never Got Over last year, so I was so hyped to read the rest of the series. And books 2 and 3 are finally here. They're finally out. The series is now complete, and I'm so sad about it. Book 2 is Things We Hide from the Light, and book 3 is Things We Left Behind. Both were such good sequels. I mean, there was a lot to live up to after Things We Never Got Over. And thankfully, I did love these 2 books. I loved Lucian and Sloane. I loved Nash and Lena. Did I love these small town romances as much as the first book? That would be a no, because Things We Never Got Over is still my favorite of the series. Neither of these books surpassed my love for that book, but I still loved being back in the Knock 'em Out series, Knock 'em Out world. So these were fantastic sequels. They just didn't beat book one for me. And then this next sequel is probably the most anticipated sequel of 2023. Everyone was dying for it because the first book blew up this year. So this is Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. The hype for this book was insane because of how big Fourth Wing became. So Iron Flame had a lot to live up to. Everyone's eyes were on it. So was this a good sequel? I'm kind of sad to say that I didn't enjoy this one quite as much as Fourth Wing. I mean, they're very close, but this one I liked maybe slightly less. And it was definitely because of the slower beginning. In book one of the Empyrean series, you're pretty much thrown in to all the excitement right from the start. Here, it took a little bit more time. You're gradually warming up to all the action, all the intensity. So in that sense, it was different and not as good, but I still did like it. It wasn't like it was a bad book. There were just too many expectations on this sequel, so it was always going to be hard to live up to all of them. And even though this one wasn't as good as Fourth Wing, I'm still really excited to read the rest of the series because Rebecca Yarros is still doing a great thing with these books. I also did read two pretty big sequels that came out in 2023. The only thing is that these are the only books that I've read in the series. I haven't read any of the previous books, so I can't say if they were like good follow-ups, but I can at least say if they were good books or not. So I did read The Broken Vows by Katerina Mara. This is the latest book in the Windsor series, book 4, and I really like this one. It's this angsty, dramatic, second chance romance. It's enemies to lovers. I love the romance, but again, I haven't read the rest of the Windsor series, but I really want to now. It has been on my TBR for a while, but kind of skipped over to reading the last book, the latest book. We do get to see the previous couples in this book though, so that's what has me so intrigued now. So this was good, but I can't say if it was better than the rest of the series. And then same thing for A Long Time Coming by Megan Quinn. This is the third and I'm pretty sure final Kane Brothers series because there's only 3 brothers and I read the last one. It's this fantastic friends to lovers romance. It's slow burn. This is a kind of friends to lovers where both the main characters are genuine platonic friends, and I had a great time with it. It's sweet, a little funny, and the hero falls so hard. He falls first and he falls hard. And like the Windsor series, I now need to catch up on the rest of the Kane Brothers series. Also, I did want to mention a couple big sequels that I read this year that did not also release this year. I did read the third book in the Love Light series. This is Mixed Signals by B.K. Borison, and I loved it. The sequel absolutely lived up to all the hype. It's now my favorite of the series. So it's a fantastic sequel. We have a small town romance between a local baker and the guy that has crushed on her for a very long time. I also read some more of the Blood and Ash series by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I'm a little behind, but I did read book 4 this year. This is The War of Two Queens, and I will say I was a little nervous going into this because of all the talk about it. It's very controversial, but honestly, I found it to be a little boring. It's the weakest one of the series for me. It's my least favorite. I think I gave it 3.5 stars. It was just okay, and that one scene that everyone was talking about was also just okay. I sadly wasn't too impressed with this sequel. And then these last sequels are part of the Like Us series. I read Misfits Like Us and also Infamous Like Us. Infamous Like Us is book 10, Misfits Like Us is book 11. Infamous is the last book in the Thruple trilogy. That whole trilogy with Sully, Akara, and Banks is honestly my least favorite of the whole Like Us series, my least favorite out of all the Kristen Becker Ritchie couples. I just never vibed with the romance and with those books. So it was a sequel that I really didn't care too much about, but we have this sequel, Misfits Like Us. This is the start of a new couple. It's Luna and Donnelly, and I adored them. It really reminded me a lot of the feels from the earlier Addicted books. It's cute and quirky and adorable. I love them. So even though Infamous Like Us was the sucky sequel, Misfits absolutely made up for it. I do need to catch up on the series though. I've been waiting for this trilogy, Luna and Donnelly's trilogy, to finish before continuing, and luckily that'll be soon. And that's it for all of the romance sequels that I got to in 2023. Thankfully, there's a lot of good ones. A lot of them did live up to the hype. Anyway, let me know what you guys think of any of these sequels, if you read them. What was your favorite sequel that you read this year? As always, links to everything will be down in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!